Now my dad decided he wants to cook and he's going to be a little chef today. It's honestly embarrassing for me because at any point I can learn how to cook, but I just decide not to. You want to know why? Because I'm manifesting that a chef is just going to walk into my life, sweep me off my feet with some, I don't know, lomito or something. That's just the dream. It's just a dream, and I'm gonna keep dreaming. Don't knock me for trying. Hi, beautifuls. This is the Sincerely Cast podcast. I'm your host, Cassandra. If you are new here, welcome. If you listened to my episodes before, welcome back. I'm just so ecstatic to be here. You know what's actually crazy? First of all, I don't have any makeup on aside from mascara and some lip tint, barely, because I'm tan right now. I'm tan. Just came back from a family vacation. We went back to Cancun. It was amaze balls, but I was very homesick, of course, because my little puppuccinos were back home missing me. Shout out to my aunt, my uncle, my cousin for watching them, and they were just very well taken care of, very well. So I'm happy that you guys tuned in. These episodes are all about discussing dating life, parenthood, finance, imposter syndrome, adulting, all things millennial. I'm a licensed mental health counselor. I'm a dog mom. I'm a daughter. I'm a sister. And today, the ADHD is ADHDing. It's doing its thing. I am just so much energy, so much energy. I don't know where to put it all. My mom would say, ponte a limpiar, to which I will reply, not that kind of energy. So the last time I recorded this, I mentioned that my screen was cracked and all of that, like my screen protector. I have yet to go back to T-Mobile to get a replacement. So that's that. That's number one. And I forgot what number two was. Not important. Moving on. For the record, these episodes are not therapy. In no way, shape, or form should they be used as therapy. They are not therapy because I'm going to give you the low down of things that you should do to not take care of your sanity. Just kidding. They're just not therapy. Yes, I'm a licensed mental health counselor, but a lot of the things that I talk about here are more personal things that I find myself as a millennial going through in today's day and age, and are sometimes not rooted in therapeutic practices. There are going to be a lot of reflection points to which you can get your little journal out, your little notepad. Side note, I have a little notepad because I was supposed to write all the things that I needed to buy. And so far, I need a new memory. 14 of them right now. But anyway, grab your drink of choice. Today, it's just going to be a water for me, or else I will be bouncing off the walls. And we're just going to jump right in. Okay, so there's like so many things that we can talk about, like the election and the fact that our country is in the shitter. I don't even know where to begin with that, so I just won't. But one of the reoccurring things that are coming up for me as a millennial is just capitalism. I opened up my private practice in 2020 and everyone's like, oh my God, so amazing, all these things. Like, side note, I also had to kind of make my bed a little bit. But you see my little piggy, I won her at the fair. Just kidding. It was Universal Studios. And I beat all those little kids. I don't care how old you are, I'm freaking winning. And I won. And they gave me my pig. And I am not apologetic about it. Anyway, so I opened up my private practice in 2020 thinking that I'm going to be part of the 1% here. And the only thing that's 1% is my battery life at all times. I figured I would talk about capitalism. I know a lot of us have broken out of the rat race, essentially, the matrix. Like, we just want to have our own business, we want our own side hustles, and all of these things. And so I figured I would talk about that, the pretty, the ugly, the all in betweens, if you are considering getting out of your 9 to 5 and starting your own business, like me and a lot of other people. Mind you, I am pretty much somebody that wings everything that I do. I wing everything. I can't even tell you how I actually got my own private practice. I did everything that I needed to legally, of course, but I can't tell you like step by step. I just know that I got here and I'm here. And I'm sure if I look back and actually swift through the paperwork and stuff, yeah, we're gonna find it. But in this moment, I can't. So I figured that I just break down capitalism in a way that's understandable for us millennials, because sometimes people start talking finance and I'm like, yeah, no, it's not for me. So if you're someone who, like I said, is wanting to break away from your 9 to 5, that boring ass place with your insufferable boss, follow this little exercise. I'm going to explain capitalism in about 20 seconds. So imagine you want to start a side hustle. You create customized bongs and you want to sell them online, because let's be honest, Instacart and DoorDash me. You get to set your own prices, you got to do marketing, so you got to run your ads, and in the end, you get to keep all of the profit, except for the huge chunk that goes to the government, and of course all other fees. But essentially, you are an entrepreneur. Congratulations. You're grinding your way to the top, one bong at a time. Now we're going to multiply that by millions of people, and that's capitalism. Private individuals or companies, not the government, that own and control businesses. So again, somebody's selling bongs, somebody's selling t-shirts, somebody's doing lashes, somebody's doing nails. We all compete, we're all creative, and we make loads and loads of cash in theory. So what's actually happening is that there's a giant ladder and the people at the top are able to see and play with the cash. The people in the middle are playing around with a whole bunch of credit cards and credit card debt. And the people at the bottom are probably juggling around 3 jobs because they could barely make rent. Ideally, we could all just freaking climb the ladder. We could just learn to climb to the top. But the harsh reality is that a lot of people are either just born at the top or given a huge advantage and a huge push to get to the top, and everyone else is just left looking up, hoping to get some sort of raise or a day off that isn't like a Tuesday or a Wednesday. Shout out to Delta Life for constantly giving us Tuesdays and Wednesdays off. Okay, so that's your lesson on capitalism. In short, it's pretty much like a big monopoly game. A whole bunch of people control the board when ideally it's supposed to just be up for grabs, you know what I'm saying? But a whole bunch of people control the board while a big chunk of us get sent back to home, and we're hopeful for the next time. Still sweating, but shout out to my girl for giving me the perfect recommendation for deodorant. It still smells so good. It's called Salt Air. Salt Air at your local Targets or whatever. Okay, so how does capitalism tie into millennialism? It's pretty simple. Again, a lot of us are trying to just find a way to make ends meet. And so we get creative. We start like side hustles and all these things. And then, it's so crazy because you could have a really amazing idea, but sometimes you're just not born at the top of the ladder. And this is not to discourage you, but hopefully to normalize your experience so that you can separate, because there's a fine line between there must be something that I'm doing wrong versus, unfortunately, this is just the way capitalism works. So don't give up on your daydream, honey. But we are essentially all affected because of this like hustle culture that has been breeding and brewing in our generation. So I'm gonna need you to like pause for a second and ask yourself, do you sometimes believe that you're just not working hard enough. If you feel like you can do more work, then yeah, you work a little harder, get up a little earlier. But if you are someone that does put in an immense amount of work, you're working super long hours, you know what they say about like entrepreneurs, I wanted to quit my 9 to 5 and now I work 24/7. But if you are actually putting in the work and you're not necessarily seeing the results, like I promise you, a big chunk of it is just unfortunately capitalism. And we just gotta love social media because it's a constant slap in the face of like, oh, how come I can't necessarily have those results? And so you gotta nip it in the bud because it's not healthy. It's not healthy. Okay. So grab your little notepad. We're going to jot down the things that you have been doing for your business. If you are working a 9 to 5 and you're not necessarily seeing cash come in, we're going to go back to our budget sheets. I wish I was a financial advisor so that I can like advise you, but I do have a contact for a financial advisor. They don't charge me. They haven't charged me. They never charged me. So I don't think that they do. And he will help you get your budget where it needs to be. And you're probably going to hear a couple things. You had a credit card debt like me, you're going to hear a couple things that you're not quite ready for. So just prepare yourself for that conversation. So how else does capitalism affect millennials? We are trained to believe that if you are not hustling, you are not productive. Like I said, you're just lazy. And ultimately, the message that it translates to is that your worth is tied to productivity. So if you needed to take a mental health day, you're a freaking slacker. The terms like girl boss and empire and like all of these things, like don't get me wrong. It's not wrong to want these things, but are you tying your worth to productivity? There should be a clear distinction. We need to have boundaries in the workplace or in your side hustles, like whatever, a clear distinction because self-worth should not come from material things or should not come from how hard you work versus not, because there's so many other factors. Like you might not be working hard that week, one, because you're physically sick, two, you could be emotionally and mentally sick. So your value should not come from that. And so with my business, man, I remember there was a time I moved out of my parents for like 4 months, a whopping 4 months. I came back for like multiple reasons, but finance was not one of them. I was doing very well for myself, but I was also very sick because I was working so damn much and I barely had breaks throughout the day. So I quickly learned that working too much for me, for Cassandra, is a no-go. How can I maximize my time without actually having to work? I want to live. I want to live life and experience life, not waste most of my precious time working. And so I cut back a lot. I cut back on a lot of clients. And I obviously wasn't making the same amount. This was maybe like after COVID. And since then, the price of everything, as we've mentioned, has gone severely up. Like we're literally paying 3 times what our past generations would pay for things. And personally, I'm getting to the point where I'm like, oh wow, like milk is that much? Yeah, that's normal. That's pretty normal. That checks out. I don't know why I said milk. I could have chosen anything else on that grocery list and I said milk. But yeah, I'm getting to the point where I'm kind of just like used to everything being expensive and it's no longer shocking. And that is scary and shocking for me because there was one point where I was like, I'm sorry, how much did you say? And then living with my parents as a 31-year-old, like I said, that should be its own like episode. I'm constantly reminded at how horrible I am with managing my money when actually all my bills are paid. And then I still have some left over. But I like to travel and I like to do like all these other things. And now that I'm like talking about this, I'm probably the worst example when it comes to money management because I will literally not pay a credit card. I won't pay it because I'm not giving a dime to those bastards, but I will use it. Anyway, so I can kind of see, like, where people are coming from. But we are being divided between, do we work harder to be able to get more money to pay off our bills and like all these other things, or do we just say F it and continue to live life? That is such a tough decision. You can't give me that decision because I'm always going to want to live life. Everything somehow is going to work itself out. That's always one thing that my parents, I feel like they hate that about me, because it depends the mood they're in that day. But I am such a everything's going to work itself out type of girl. And it could be very dangerous because I do be making some questionable decisions because everything is just going to work out. I digress, because at the end of the day, everything is so expensive. And I just want to go to Mama Sushi and just have myself a whole bunch of little sushis with a whole bunch of little drinks. And capitalism is making it so difficult for me to be able to do that. So yeah, I have a bone to pick. It's not you, it's capitalism. That's what I'm going to call this episode. If you're anything like me, a millennial, you are constantly ruminating about how you are not doing enough. It's you're not working the hours that you should be working. You're not putting in the work that everyone's putting in. But what if this is all a freaking psychological trick to just get all of us to keep hustling, to keep being scared, to keep feeling guilty that we're not doing enough, and it just makes everything go round. And also, I just want to add one more thing. If I didn't say already, like, we all become almost as like hyper focused, hyper obsessed with being better than the next person. I have to be a better therapist than everyone because I need money for my business and like all these things. And it's just awful because it does essentially take away from, for example, this is just an example, but it takes away from me just showing up for my client authentically, as opposed to just like, I gotta be the best, or I gotta put the best content out there, etc. So yeah, if we're gonna talk about it producing symptoms, I'm your girl. So listen up. Listen up to see if you have any of these symptoms created by Miss Capitalism. You think capitalism is a girl or a boy? Mr. Capitalism. Miss Capitalism. I don't know. She kind of gives me like bitchy vibes. I'm going to go with Miss. So I'm going to talk about just the two overall umbrella symptoms. These are the main themes that I see in myself and I see coming up for my clients a lot of the times, or like my friends when they talk about working hard and trying to make ends meet and all of these fun little things. Anxiety and perfectionism. I feel like our generation, this generation of millennials, is so, I wouldn't say like all of them. I wouldn't say all of you guys, because I do admire the ones that are just like, F it. But majority of us are like perfectionists. I've learned to deviate a little bit from that because I saw how much it was contributing to my anxiety. But there are still some things where I'm like, it's not quite right. It's not right. Let's run it again. First symptom is going to be constant overthinking. So you might be replaying work meetings in your head over and over, just trying to think about what you could have said better in comparison to your colleague, coworker. Essentially, anxiety loves to keep you in that what if cycle. What if I had just done a better job with that advertisement or that post that I put out, etc. But there's going to be constant overthinking. Number two, this happens with me so much, paralysis by analysis. It actually happens less frequently because, like I said, I've been trying to really monitor and just, don't put so much thought into it. But you want to get things just right to the point where you just don't even get anything done at all. If you are in a creative, like side hustle, this can really stop you. If you're in the corporate world or whatever, anywhere where you have to type emails and stuff, you might spend hours planning out the perfect email or rereading to see if you missed any typos because you think somebody will notice. 9 times out of 10, nobody cares. I be sending my emails out with emojis. I know the professionals hate me because, yeah, I be doing that and I don't care. The third one, the imposter syndrome that a lot of us get, feeling like at any moment, people are going to realize we're frauds. I have imposter syndrome, present tense, even with these episodes. Sometimes I'm like, oh my God, like, what could I possibly have to say to the people. And you know what? At the end of the day, you really just have to grab it by the balls and say F it. Because even if one person can take what you say and do something with it, like, it should be enough. But if you allow imposter syndrome to run your life, your anxiety is always going to have you believing that there's someone more qualified, there's someone better, there's someone more organized, to which at some point you're really going to have to call BS on it. Like, where is the evidence for that? And someone's probably looking at you and thinking the same thing, honey bunny. The fourth thing is going to be obsessive productivity. We kind of talked about this a little bit, where you kind of just feel like if you are not being productive, you are worth nothing. This one's really hard because you got to take breaks. You have to learn to take breaks. I feel like capitalism has kind of just, again, ingrained in us that no, if you take a break, there's somebody that's going to be outworking you. Let's play devil's advocate. Even if there is someone outworking you, I promise you, in the long run, if y'all are not prioritizing sleep, rest, re-energizingness, kaplitz. And not only that, but if you are constantly in this productivity overdrive, guess what it's going to lead to? Which I just spoke about it in my last episode. Pop quiz, and if you don't know, go watch it. But it's going to lead to burnout. All of these symptoms are related to how capitalism affects millennials. Moving on, you have your obvious physical symptoms, chronic fatigue, and again, just enter all anxiety symptoms as well. And the last common symptom is the fear of failure. Fear of failure has all of us by the freaking throat. And it's honestly the worst because it will have you miss out on such amazing opportunities. Like, let's say you did want to start like a side hustle, or you did want to find a more creative way to make money aside, like, or outside of your 9 to 5. Fear of failure will keep you in that space of settling. And so it's hard because we're competing with capitalism, but at the same time, we're also competing with fear of failure. And then there's that looming feeling of being stuck at the bottom of the ladder. And so you have this amazing idea and you want to light a fire under it, but then there's like, it's just a vicious cycle, y'all. It's a vicious cycle. And so again, the next time that you find yourself thinking like, damn, I should be doing more. Do more, but you need to know when that meter is going to reach a certain point. Do more, and when that personal meter reaches a certain point, you need to learn to let go, because at that point there are like external forces at play that you cannot necessarily compete with on your own. This episode is not necessarily like the how-to steps on how to create like a side business and stuff. This is more to educate you on how capitalism works. And if you are someone who constantly feels like you're never doing enough, or you are doing enough but you're not reaping the benefits of it, you got to learn to question how much of it is you and how much of it is the system. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to clock that personal meter of yours. Okay. The goal is not to get sucked into capitalism's psychological games. The goal is to live an abundant life, a fun life, a life that gives you endless experiences. And remember, sometimes experiences are not always pleasant. That is the goal of life. Don't get sucked into these freaking bastards games. So number one, and I love this one, we're going to start off with a bang here. We're going to set good enough goals. Your goals do not have to be perfect. Your email does not have to be perfect. Your content does not have to be perfect. Can you change the perspective and just put out good enough content? Send a good enough email. Is it clear and concise? Okay, great. It's going out. We're not robots. If there's a typo and if somebody's clocking you because of your typo, that is not someone that I would want to be personally associated with, because it would mean they don't have the first clue of what's actually important in life. And in the end, done is better than perfect. Number two, speaking to the workaholics like me, and it's still a work in progress, because when I get into something, maybe it's ADHD, but when I get into something, I get super hyper focused on it, and it's hard for me to just pay attention to everything else around me. Set a timer to take breaks. It's easy to categorize break and rest into things that are not productive. And if they're not productive, they're not worth your time. No, those breaks and that time blocking is essentially what's going to help your oiled machine run better in the long run. Number 3, in this capitalistic world, you need to mark down your small wins. We are all so fixated on that like big promotion. The exercise is going to be a little hard because we are just not used to doing it. But you got to stop playing that comparison game with yourself or with other people. Like I said, your worth is not tied to how many big achievements you have. You have to get into the practice of counting small achievements as an achievement. Maybe it's time to get rid of small versus big achievements, which kind of counteracts this tip. But an achievement is an achievement, and you need to learn to track and list all of them. Number 4, if a majority of your work involves a little screen here, it's so important to have boundaries. Discipline is definitely key to this because I get it. The little dopamine that TikToks give off, you got to set a boundary with it. And you got to stick to your word. Just a quick check-in. Remember that all of these little tidbits are in relation to us getting out of the cycle that capitalism has created in our heads. The belief that we have to be hustling 24/7 and we have to be working towards something all the time. That produces certain symptoms of anxiety, and these tidbits are essentially going to help you work through that anxiety, and most importantly and deeper than that, break through the cycle of capitalism. Number 5, learn how to say no. We've already been through this step before. Boundaries are so important, and I'm going to keep repeating it. And if you're listening to it again, it's probably for a reason. Learn to say no. Not everything has to get done today. And it's so funny, just the concepts of jobs and stuff. Like, what is this even real? Like, what's even real? Number 6, I think, practice groundedness. So again, whenever we get into or fall into the trap of like, I have to get all these things done, take a deep breath, zoom out. If you're worrying about what's going to happen in the future, zoom out. Worrying should not compromise your health, your emotional health, your mental health. Remind yourself, is this as important as me losing my shit right now? Or is this worth me losing my shit right now? No, it's not. I love the next one. Let yourself have a messy day. People are referring it to slug days, rot days, whatever. Allow yourself more moments to be human. Did you forget you're human? I think you forgot you're human. Let yourself mess up. Have those messy days. It's okay. It's a part of the experience. Honestly, I love the days when things are not going right. I mean, I hate it because it feels uncomfortable. But in hindsight, I'm like, oh, that was like the best day ever because this is what I learned from it. The next one is just a reminder again, your self-worth is not tied to your productivity levels. Ingrain it somewhere. And of course, the last one, don't be afraid to talk it out with people. I promise you, I feel like we're all going through the same things in different fonts. And don't be afraid to talk it out with people. And remember, whenever you feel like you are not doing enough, it's fine. Maybe you are missing something, right? List down the things that you are doing for yourself. Do you feel like you're spending enough time doing it? Are you satisfied with it? Are you not? In the end, like, there also has to be a boundary for that too, right? So let's say you're like, oh, I only spent 7 hours studying when I could have done 8. Like, honey, 7 of those hours, like, really break that down. In the midst of you writing things down and getting it on paper, you're really going to be able to see like how excessive you've actually been putting the work in. And if you're not yielding the results, again, we're dealing with a much bigger force. Or you're going to see the opposite. I definitely could be doing more. Like, I 1000% could be doing more. But maybe it's that imposter syndrome kicking in, or maybe it's the fear of failure that's kicking in. All these things, you know what I'm saying? So take what resonates, leave what doesn't. And actually, the most important thing too, changes are not going to happen overnight. So I don't know where we got that notion from that, like, if I do something, if I do this squat right now, I'm going to have the biggest ass. ass. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. So remember, small, manageable steps make up the whole. Okay, and that is my little spiel because I'm starving. I'm surprised you didn't hear my stomach growl throughout the episode. My dad made food. Like I said, I'm going to go see how it tastes. Hopefully it's delicious. I'm going to eat some seco de pollo right now. And it's going to be amazing. This wraps up the first month's episodes, which I am so proud of myself for even recording these and editing. Editing is a pain in my ass, but I will do it over again if it means that I'm just putting content out and letting people in on my life a little bit in a way that's much more authentic. Like I said, this feels good, and just happy that you guys are here watching. I'm sending you so much love, so much light. We're all in this together, and remember, it's okay to not have it figured out. It's okay. Anyway, I hope everybody has an amazing rest of their week. And that's my dad calling me. Sincerely, Cass.